Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. If this is your first time watching, my name is Ben, amateur call sign K0BJJ, and this is Spotter Jutting, where we do amateur radio, storm spotting, and a lot more. We are continuing our series on emergency communications and things you might want to think of. This episode today is going to be over kind of a beginner guide for storm spotting, things you want to consider before you get into storm spotting. Now I am going to be looking over at some notes because I don't want to miss out on any important details that you might want to consider before you start getting into storm spotting. So with that, let's get to the content. So one thing I want to talk to you about while you're deciding if you want to get into storm chasing or storm spotting is where you're going to get your training from. Training is very important when it comes to storm operations. And those are, where you get that training is valuable. So a very good place to get it, if you are in the continental United States, is the National Weather Service. In fact, they want you to help. All the National Weather Service stations will need volunteers to put eyes on the ground on storms. So then they are willing to train you. They are willing to take time out of their schedule for classes, either online or in person, for you to learn how to storm spot, where you're spotting and who to contact and how to contact them. So National Weather Service is a wonderful resource. In fact, while you're watching this, watch your local National Weather Services. In the spring is typically when they do their storm spotting classes, and that's when I'm going to recommend you really get on board with that kind of training. Now there is another network called Spotter Network, which is built by storm spotters around the country and around the world. They also have classes that you can take, and more training the better. I mean, they can be combining classes. It's been a while since I've taken one of their classes from around the country. So I'm in the Midwest. Our main threat is high winds, tornadoes, flash flooding. Now, if you're out in California, they have, fire danger that they have to worry about. And, the National Weather Service does need spotters. They want you to be safe while doing it. So, you can get classes from like Spotter Network. Also, by watching and apprenticing other spotters. There's enough content out on the internet, especially on YouTube, where other spotters will take you on live chases and you can ask them questions. Dr. Reed Timmer is a wonderful resource for this, as well as Colorado Storm Chasers. They'll take you out live streaming an event, and you can ask them on stream, what are they looking for? What's the main threat? How did they get to where they, where they are? Why are they chasing in Iowa today versus chasing in Oklahoma or Missouri? They will tell you and give you an insight to their thought process and the forecasting that they use. That brings me on to another thing, equipment. Are you going to be using forecast models? If you are, what kind of forecast models? Pivotal Weather, and I'll link that below, has a wonderful series of free tools that you can use, and that's what I personally use, as well as radars and a variety of radars. When I'm out in the field, I always have radar scope going on my phone to get the most up-to-date radar I can. And that'll help me determine where I want to deploy at and how I want to deploy. Do I have a storm coming at me from the north? Do I have a storm coming east-west? What direction am I pointing my vehicle? Where exactly in the storm I'm looking at? As well as the equipment aspect comes on, are you going to take any equipment with you out in the field to help measure wind speeds? National Weather Service, your local authorities would like to know as accurate of wind speeds as possible. So are you going to take an anemometer? And if so, what does it top out at? My anemometer I take out with me tops out about 68 miles per hour. So if I put that anemometer out the window and it's pegging out, I know that I have probably 70 mile an hour winds directly in front of me, and it's accurate. And when I call that in, I have winds in excess of 68 miles an hour because I can't give them an exact number, but I can tell them it's more than 68. I know for a fact it's more than 68 miles per hour. So that is the most accurate I can give them. Now, if I had an anemometer that was mounted on a vehicle that could do 110, 120 mile an hour winds, I could give them an exact wind speed and direction if I had that set up, but I don't. Also, are you going to be using radio for this? Are you going to be using ham radio, CB, GMRS, FRS? How are you going to communicate? Who are you reporting to? How do they expect your communications to be? National Weather Service in the Des Moines area, you can give them a phone call. You can reach out on ham radio. You can get on social media and report to them via social media. They have a lot of different avenues to get these reports in. Me personally, I am a ham operator. I like to use radio, even though this one isn't on, but it doesn't need to be on right now. Another resource I use often with National Weather Service in Des Moines is to call them on the phone. It is the first contact right under my wife. And I'll try to flip that around so that way you can actually read it. It says tornado reporting. It's not even under National Weather Service. I know that tornado reporting phone number is going to take me to the National Weather Service phone. They're going to answer. They're going to say, National Weather Service, how can I help you? Then I'm going to give them my spiel about what's going on. So how are you going to report it? And how do they want it reported? So when I call in on that for National Weather Service, and we'll get into this more in a future video. When I call into National Weather Service, I give them my spotter identification number, I give them my location, and I give them what I'm seeing. So this is spotter JP 202. I am located 1 mile north of Colfax at this intersection, and I have a rotating wall cloud to the north of me, approximately 1 mile moving east at an unknown speed. If they want more information, they'll ask. They're like, all right, it's rotating. They'll ask, is it lowering? Is it doing this, this, and this? Or they'll say, thank you, we're getting multiple reports about that. Be safe and please keep an eye on it. Let us know if anything changes, which is often what they say. But they might want more detail, and that gives them, you've just given them, one, who you are, which here we have spotter identification numbers. You've given them their location, and you've given them the base threat of what you're seeing. So at the minimum, they can target, hey, we might want to put a tornado warning out here for a rotating wall cloud, just off that minimum information. But if they want more, they can always ask you for more. Same goes with the radio. I get on their DMR talk group. I call out to them, hey, K0DMX, this is, and I'll use my ham call sign for that, K0BJJ. They'll respond with, you go ahead. I am located at this location. This is what I'm seeing, and this is my spotter identification number. So that way they still know it's still spotter JP202. This is where he's located, but he's contacting via ham radio. And again, if they want more information, they just call you right back on the radio, get you more information. So how do you want to report in? Along with equipment, vehicles are important. Are you going to be using an all-wheel drive, two-wheel drive, pickup, van, high profile, low profile? This is important, especially when it comes to high wind events. If you're going to be in a high profile vehicle, say a full-size van, it's a giant sail, if the wind's coming at you, you might not want to be side on with it. You might want to be nose onto it. Use your aerodynamics of your vehicle. If you're side onto it, it might roll you over, push you into the ditch. If you're nose onto it, it's just like driving down the interstate at, depending on whatever mile an hour winds. If you take 100 mile an hour wind, nose on in your vehicle, you're probably going to be all right. Why? Because your vehicle is designed to drive that speed down the interstate. It's the same wind load. So that's one thing to consider. How do you take the wind in your vehicle? It's a safety aspect. I always point nose into the wind, or as nose heavy as I can into the wind, to take advantage of the aerodynamics of the car. We talked about radios. Are you going to be using a handheld? If so, how is your reception in your vehicle? I mean, this is a 5-watt radio. This is not the radio I will talk to National Weather Service on. I have a 50-watt, but given I'm talking through a hotspot on the digital mobile radio or DMR network, I don't need the power. but I do need the power to talk to the local repeaters so I can get information out. Because the moment I call in the National Weather Service, I'm also letting people around me know. I might be out with 5 or 6 other spotters all on ham radio, and we're communicating what we're hearing and what we're seeing. And one of the questions that comes out is, when you're communicating that, is, has it been reported? And if you're the only one able to report stuff to National Weather Service, they might rely on you to submit their reports via radio. Or they might just pick up their phone and call them themselves. But information passing is pivotal. And when you have radios out there, if it is a handheld, you're at home and you're doing the radio spotting from home, how charged is your battery? Do you have other batteries? If you lose power, how are you going to communicate? All things that you need to consider while storm spotting. And then we go into our planning phase, and I'm sorry, I've got the storm spot pooch. He's getting excited walking around me. Here's me talking about storm spotting. Another thing you want to consider from your planning phase is, where are you going to be doing this at? I've already touched on home or mobile. Are you going to sit at home and report what is coming at you? Are you going to be mobile and driving down there? If so, what are your communications like? How are you going to tell people where you are? How are you going to be safe while doing that? Are you going to be in a team or alone? There are storm spotting teams all throughout the country. Some of them use amateur radio. Some of them don't. Some of them use CB. Some of them use GMRS. Some of them use FRS. How far are you going in a team, and how far are you going to be away from one another? How are you communicating, and how are you reporting to authorities what you're seeing? Or are you going to be alone? Again, and we'll get into this on the next video, because the next video I'm going to have is storm spotting alone. And the first thing I'm going to tell you there, the first thing I'm going to tell you now, is do not do it. You are never alone when you are storm spotting. You always have someone that knows where you're at. So you're always in a team. But there's a difference between your significant other or your mother or your father knowing, hey, I know they're in this area because that's where they're telling me, and this is their location in case something happens. And there's a difference between that and you're out with 5 to 6 other people and you all are storm spotting. You're never alone, but you can do it alone as long as you're reporting your position to people that care about you. That way, if something happens, they know where to start looking. So, in a team or alone, get out there preactively. Right now, it's 17 degrees out in Iowa. The threat of severe weather, other than maybe a snowstorm, and actually that isn't even that great right now. But this is the time to be going out and doing your pre-spot planning. Get out in your local area. Find hive spots. Find places with high visibility. If you have crops, go out there and try to picture, okay, what's my visibility going to be like once I got a field of corn next to me? You know, figure out where you want to go, figure out the good places to be. No place is exactly perfect, but you can get out there and kind of predict where you're already going to go during the off season. See where you want to go, see where you want to be. And then when the storms hit, you head out to that location and you might have to move. Another thing you want to know is physical geography of the area. If there's a flash flood, are you between two creeks that are going to flood and lock you in? Planning that out in advance, looking at your hazards around your spotting locations, that can be done right now. In the wintertime, that can be done in the off season. It can be done during the season, but typically you don't want to be going to a spot going, well, if all heck breaks loose, I really have no escape route and I have no way to retreat. This is my last stand. You want to figure that out ahead of time, not during the situation. I've already touched on this, who you're reporting to and how are you reporting it. So make sure you know who you're reporting to. I report to National Weather Service. Make sure you know how you're going to do it. I have a radio, I have phone. I also can take pictures and send them via social media to National Weather Service. They appreciate pictures, especially of tornadoes. If you can get still photos of tornadoes from a safe distance, National Weather Service will love that because that gives them a physical reference of what's going on there. They will go back and study your photos and they will look at the formation of the tornado and they will compare that photo to what they were seeing on radar. It helps them. So photos are amazing. Don't put yourself at risk to get them. Be safe. Take that photo from 5 miles away with the tornado crossing in front of you and not coming at you, or the tornado going away from you, wherever you get your visibility site. Be safe while doing it. But National Weather Service will love those photos. Pictures of hail. Are you going to take a ruler out with you and actually do hail measurements? National Weather Service loves that. It helps them with their modeling. It helps them with their predicting. So how are you going to report? Who are you going to report to? Those are big things, especially when storm spotting. We're not out there glory hunting. We're not out there going, I'm going to get a picture of this and I'm going to brag that I can, get all these, tornadoes or get right up on them. And, we're not out there for fame. We're out there to protect life. Protecting life. That's what we're doing while storm spotting. Now, that is the key difference, I'm going to say, between spotting and chasing. Chasers are glory hunters to an extent. They're out there to get the film, to get the notoriety, to say, this is what I saw on radar, this is what I saw in predictability, and I found it, and I got it. There's nothing wrong with that. But local spotters on the ground that know the area, they're out there to protect life. Now, I do branch outside my local area here. I say the moment I leave the county, I become a chaser. Though I never leave my reporting area. I am always in the National Weather Service Des Moines area, and I always am reporting. I have a way to give my exact location via GPS. I am out there to report events. I am not out there to get awesome footage for you guys and not call National Weather Service. I'm out there to call National Weather Service first and get things known about, and then the channel content comes second. So that's what I'm out there for. And then I touched in with the vehicles, two-wheel drive, four-wheel drive. Are you going to be, driving a huge sail out there? How are you going to angle your vehicle or your vehicle maintenance up to it? I mean, if you've got to have a four-wheel drive's got to work in order for it to, be feasible. Otherwise, you just got a two-wheel drive. Are you going to take a small little sedan? Are you going to take a big old truck or a van? I drive a Ford F-150 with a topper on the back. This thing catches more wind than a parachute. So I know when I go out, I need to angle nose into the wind so that way the wind slips up over the truck. It's a safety thing. I also know if I need four-wheel drive to get out of a tight spot, even though I never plan on being in a tight spot, I have that able to do that to get into a four-wheel drive. If I have to drive through a ditch, if I have to drive through a field, I have a better chance with the four-wheel than I do with a two-wheel. Again, that's never part of the plan. That's part of the contingency, and that's why I have that vehicle. Just in case. I suppose I've given you a bunch of stuff to think about here, and that's what I want to do. We are going to go into the next episode with a storm spotting for beginners, solo storm spotting, where we're going to talk about you as an individual going out by yourself to do storm spotting. If that is something you would like to see, I will card that right here when it posts. If not, thank you for watching. If you enjoy the channel content or you want to see what other things we have available on this channel, please consider subscribing and please check out everything else. With that, thanks for watching. Have a great day.